Hey! This is FF episode 1455. 1455. Enjoy. Café Anyway. Yes.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
Why, that sounds a little different than the usual intro to the show. How come, Mike? Well, person that likes my show that may notice these things, it's because the file that I use, the computer that I use for my podcast on Sundays is not working correctly. So I had to build up the entire
Mike's
show.
Daily Podcast.
Piece by piece, brick by brick, stone by stone, recreate my show called
Mike's Daily Podcast.
And on today's episode, we're going to talk to some people and such. And I have some things that bother me very much. And one of those things is the phrase farm to table. Farm to table. I hear that all the time. Farm to table. What the hell? Does that just mean that you can charge me like crazy amounts of money for the food at your restaurant?
Daily Podcast.
Is that what it means? For then I get it. But farm to table, it's
Mike's Daily
for people that can afford
Podcast.
that kind of eating out.
Yeah.
You know, $100 per person at least, which is what you got all the time in San Francisco. That's fine. That's fine. I'm going to be going to a wedding on Thursday, and the restaurant that we're going to, I'm sure, is all about farm to table. Run by a guy, a cook. Look who just walked in. That's, full of tattoos and all hipster and yeah. Hey, by the way, I was listening to a Prairie Home Companion that Chris Thiele now hosts. Garrison Keillor left, and it's now Chris Thiele. And Chris used to be in the band Nickel Creek, not Nickelback, Nickel Creek. Different band, bluegrass band. And he's amazing on the show. He does versions of other people's songs on the show. Like he did an amazing version of Benny and the Jets by Elton John. And he mentioned in a song, he had a song written for the show today, or it was last night that Wells walked in, where he talked about how he walks his son to school in Brooklyn, and he leaves the brownstone where he lives and walks his kid to school. And I thought, you can live anywhere you want. You want to live in a brownstone in Brooklyn? I don't understand. That's a hipster thing, I guess. People like that whole, I'm going to live in a brownstone. It's one of those houses that you see in those movies that take place in New York, usually with Woody Allen or some such. Some people walked in. Hi, Mark. It's Benita the Rodeo Queen. How y'all doing? It's a disgruntled fiddle player. Tell you what. What? When you say brownstone, I thought you were talking about
Here's today's podcast picture.
Stone that was brown. Nope. The podcast picture today is of Chely Shoehart, our gift shop supervisor, who also just happened to walk in at the moment that I mentioned her name. Hello, Mike Matthews. It's Chely Shoehart. Oh my God, what happened to your foot? We talked about this last show. I had an issue from all the times I've walked Basil the Boxer. It has created a stress fracture in my foot. My right foot just couldn't take it anymore, all the walking of Basil the Boxer. And so I have to wear this boot that will keep my foot safe. And I don't know how long I have to wear. I think for like 6 weeks, she said, but I don't know if I'll be able to go that far. I've actually been able to walk a little bit without it. So I think I'm slowly but surely healing. Yes, but we all have our crosses to bear, don't we? Hey, at the radio station where I work, I just had a phone call from someone who wanted to win tickets to see a comedian I'd never heard of. Apparently she does some sort of racist rant about women that work at nail salons. That's supposed to be very funny. But she's going to be performing at a local comedy shop, haha place, yuck, stand-up comedy place, which I hate stand-up comedy. I know I list this show as a comedy or under comedy, but I don't. No. Stand-up comedy, no. First off, everybody that goes to stand-up comedy, when you're in that club, when you're in that room, everyone's drinking way too much. That's why so many comedians have died young. They're surrounded by alcoholism. They become alcoholics and drug addicts and whatever, and they live very short lives. And I feel bad for them. They should have eaten more quinoa, because quinoa is good, and when you spell it, it makes you feel good inside to go, hey, I used a Q and a U today, and I'm happy about that. Q-U. That's what I say if you disagree with me. But Joseph Gordon-Levitt, can we talk about him for just a split second? Young guy, well, younger than me, but he was on the TV show Third Rock from the Sun. And then later on, he would become some character in the Batman series, I forget which. And as of late, he did that Don Juan movie where he watches entirely too much pornography. Sorry, any young kids listening today, don't ask your parents what that is. Wait, you don't need to know right now. I know we live in a world where that sort of thing is accessible, and parents need to talk to their kids at a young age about that kind of thing. But I don't want to put the pressure on their parents to have to. Why should I peer pressure parents? And other plosive questions with lots of plosives. Actually, that's the only one I can think of at the moment. But did you ever see 500 Days of Summer with Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Zooey Deschanel? That movie has not aged well. The concept was fun. I remember my ex-wife and I drove all the way to Nashville, drove an hour and a half just to see that movie, because that movie wasn't playing anywhere in Huntsville, Alabama, where we used to live. And I go, oh, wow, this looks like the most amazing movie. And it had great music. The album soundtrack was fantastic. But the movie itself is it's a nice sort of mild distraction is what it is, but overall just not the best movie. And that's my foot. I don't know if you can hear that. That's my big boot kicking the side of Café Anyway. I hope it doesn't fall down. Somebody else walked in I didn't mention. I apologize.
Hello, Mike. I make the delicious root beer. I'm the brewmaster. Oh,
Thank you for the root beer. Okay, we're going to get to a segment in just a moment, which I haven't picked yet. I'm going to do that now. Note to self. That's what we'll do. Note to self. That's what we'll do in a moment. But first, check out the website, mikesdailypodcast.com. If you do, you'll be the very first one. If the script runs too long on the website, I apologize. But I have a lot of things on there, because I allow you to connect to my Twitter through my mikesdailypodcast.com website. And you can see all my past podcast pictures and help out the show through the Amazon link at mikesdailypodcast.com. If you're going to buy anything, go through that link, and that will help me out, and I thank you ahead of time. There's also the PayPal if you'd like to help us out that way. Thank you very much. You'll get a special greeting from all the Café Anyway characters, and that will be emailed to you in a special MP3 if you do the PayPal thing. All at mikesdailypodcast.com. Okay, let's get to the segment called
Note to self.
Not too many stories today. This will be a short podcast because, quite frankly, I don't think anyone ever listens to my Sunday show. And we never do one on Saturday. And last week we did not do one on Thursday because I was in pain. By the way, I got an email today that Kai Alfred Hillig, who you can hear a lot of interviews that I've done with him at mikesdailypodcast.com, he's got a new album out. So perhaps we will speak to him very soon in the near future. But the news story I wanted to get to was, first off, that the White House is finalizing an executive order that would expand health plans offered by associations to allow individuals to pool together and buy insurance outside of their states. This was a big thing Donald Trump was talking about on the campaign trail. It's a unilateral move that follows failed efforts by Congress to overhaul the healthcare system. Donald Trump said he's long asserted that selling insurance across state lines would trigger competition that brings down premiums for people buying their own policies, which is something that I had to do up until going full-time not too long ago. And I can sympathize. Experts say that's not guaranteed, however, partly because health insurance reflects local medical costs, which vary widely around the country. Moreover, White House actions may come too late to have any impact on premiums for next year. Trump was expected to sign the executive order next week, likely on Thursday. Under the president's executive action, membership groups could sponsor insurance plans that cost less because, for example, they wouldn't have to offer the full menu of benefits required under the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. It's unclear how the White House plans to overcome opposition from state insurance regulators who see that as an end run to avoid standards. There are likely to be legal challenges that could slow this effort down, also say experts. Similar alternatives have been promoted by Rand Paul, the senator from Kentucky. He was a Republican holdout during the healthcare debate. Senate leaders didn't bring the latest GOP healthcare bill to a vote because they lacked the votes to pass it. Association plans kind of went away with the ACA, and now the idea seems to be to recreate them, said a health insurance marketing entrepreneur. It's not clear what they would really look like. All I know is that I had to use my insurance recently actually my premium's so high that I still had to pay out of pocket a crazy amount when my foot just started acting weird because of all the times I walked Basil the Boxer. So that is just something that I had to deal with, and everyone has to deal with, and there you go. And finally, I'd like to wrap up the show with the FCC, Federal Communications Commission. They have given Google approval to deploy its Project Loon balloon-based communication system. We were talking about this recently on a podcast, to provide cellular connectivity in hurricane-damaged Puerto Rico. The original plan, as I recall, I think this was about a year ago I read this article, or about this thing that Google is working on, is to bring Wi-Fi to countries that don't have internet. And it was all part of the plan of Google getting more and more people on Gmail and all their products, which I admit I am a junkie, a Google junkie, it would appear at the moment. I heard that someone that I know recently moved to Boston to pursue a woman that works for Google. And I found that fascinating. He left his job and went to Boston from California just to be close to her. Is that romantic? I don't know. Is it crazy? Like a loon? I don't know. But I will say that a mutual friend that we have, a guy by the name of Robert Welsh, who has done a segment called Welsh on the World on this show, but he hasn't done it in over like 3 years or whatever. But he got a dog earlier this year, and I talked about on the podcast how I thought maybe he shouldn't get a dog just because, well, when he had a dog before, he was still living at home with his parents, and his parents took care of the dog. And now to have a new dog, he's married, and I didn't think his wife was too much into dogs, so she was more of a cat person, so I was like, I don't think that's a good idea. And I met the dog. The dog is wonderful, really cute dog. Now I heard from Robert that he might be moving to Los Angeles, and he asked me to take the dog. Yeah, no. No. I'm a friend, but I'm not that good of a friend. I'm sorry. The last time I had 2 dogs at my house, it was a nightmare. I didn't have a job back then, so I had a lot of time I could devote to 2 dogs. But you need a lot of time to devote to 2 dogs. 1 dog requires a bunch of time. 2 dogs, and I'd be watching a dog that, even though I love this dog dearly, I would be basically enabling somebody who I knew shouldn't be getting a dog to begin with. Anyway, Café Anyway. It was...
Anyway.
I heard about this on Friday. He asked me to take his dog. I said no. Come on. What is wrong with people that get dogs that aren't ready for them? Why? You know, even though I hurt my foot, I still have to walk Basil. But Mike, you could ask one of your friends to... No. And I'll tell you, walking my dog has helped me with the healing process. It's getting my foot out there. It's moving it around, getting the blood flow. It's helping it. But still, I realize I didn't just write off my dog when that happened. Anyway, I just have this thing about people that get dogs and then decide they're not going to take care of them. But back to Project Loon, an experimental product from the Google X laboratory run by parent company Alphabet. Project Loon got an experimental license to help provide emergency cell service in the U.S. territory of Puerto Rico. More than 2 weeks. And Ajit Pai, the FCC chairman, was the one who announced this. More than 2 weeks after Hurricane Maria struck, millions of Puerto Ricans are still without access to much-needed communication services. That's why we need to take innovative approaches to help restore connectivity on the island. Project Loon is one such approach, and it's a great way for Google to practice their new invention. Other approaches included Facebook deployment of a connectivity team. That's something else that Facebook has been wanting to do, is connect with the countries of the world that don't have internet yet. And he's getting to do it this way through this situation to help restore emergency telecommunications. Mark Zuckerberg announced in a Facebook post about this September 27th. AT&T and T-Mobile have set up portable communication sites. Elon Musk from Tesla talked Friday with the governor of Puerto Rico, Ricardo Rosselló, about assisting in repair of the island's power grid with solar-powered batteries, because he's all about the batteries in his Teslas. About 88% of the country is still without power. Well, there we go. We'll see. There's no official schedule for Project Loon's deployment in Puerto Rico. We're grateful for the support of the FCC. A spokesperson for Google X's division said, thankful for the support of the FCC and the Puerto Rican authorities as we work hard to see if it's possible to use Loon balloons to bring emergency connectivity to the island during this time of need. The project's team also needs wireless companies on board to deliver signal to people's devices. Loon needs to be integrated with a telco partner's network. The balloons can't do it alone. Loon's network of high-altitude balloons is meant to beam signals down from more than 12 miles above the Earth as a way of connecting remote and rural residents. In addition to testing this in New Zealand, Alphabet announced a test to bring the internet to 100 million people in Indonesia. As we go outside of Café Anyway, where we bring you Mike's Daily Podcast somewhere in Podcaster Valley. All right, well, there you go. That's the Sunday show. I hope it was a whiz-bang fun time for you. And you know what? It's all right to be a loon. To be crazy. To be a bird called a loon. To wear your pantaloons. To sing or play the music on the piano to Claire de Lune. It is what you have to do that thing that you do. It's called a Sunday show, and I'm not very talented like Chris Thiele, who lives inside a brownstone and he has a little boy. How good for him. Oh, what a joy. Next show, we'll have the wonderful Madame Rootabega, Valentino, and Bison Bentley. Thanks for listening.
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at mikesdailypodcast.com. Email Mike now at mikesdailypodcast@gmail.com. See you tomorrow.